Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Murrumbateman Field Days for 2023. It's lovely to see you here. It's a little bit cool and a little bit windy today, so I hope you're all finding a nice, warm, sunny spot to sit in. My name is Michelle O'Neill, and I own a little business called Cherry Tree Equine, and we're down on the edge of the Snowy Mountains region. And this little chestnut friend I have behind me is called Hippie, sometimes known as Hippopotamus. And Hippie is a 7-year-old quarter horse mare who I have bred and trained. And today we're going to talk to you about finding your perfect equine partner. Now, sorry anybody who missed the equine part in the whole thing. I promise we're talking about equine partners, no human ones. Don't do the Tinder thing. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is what you should look for in a horse, okay? Some of the things, if you're going to buy a horse, some of the things you should look for, some of the things you can get away with, some of the things you can't, and I just give you a basic overview of how you avoid the pitfalls of buying the wrong horse. And anyone who's been around horses long enough has all bought the wrong horse. I've bought the wrong horse. I've got scars in one of my arms to prove it. So, you know, and I've been around horses my whole life. You know, I was lucky enough to grow up on the land. We used horses for stock work. My dad trained race horses, backyard racehorse trainer. And, you know, I came through the pony club ranks, and then I got into dressage, and then I got sick of doing dressage, and then I went into the Western world. And so I've kind of covered a lot of bases over the years, and I've seen a lot of horses. And in my horsemanship clinics across the country, I see a lot of horses that are not suitable for them. I see a lot of people who have gone out and they've bought a horse that they have thought would be everything they've ever wanted, and they've gotten it home and discovered that it's not. And it makes me sad to see that, because, you know, we're meant to enjoy these critters. It's meant to be a heap of fun. And so, you know, when you have that disappointment of buying the wrong horse, it kind of can break your heart. And it discourages people, okay? People, you know, they step away from the industry, and that's not something that we ever want. So, you guys can see this little mare. She's pretty cool. Now, if anyone was here yesterday and they saw her do a groundwork demonstration yesterday, you would have seen a fairly different horse. And, you know, today she's looking around. She wants to step forward and do a few things. But yesterday, when she had her first appearance out here, she was a completely different animal to this one you see now. And I think that's something that we should all be very aware of, is that horses are just like us. They have good days, they have bad days. They're different on different days. They're comfortable in some situations and not in others. And have any of you seen the little bay stock horse mare I've got with me here this weekend? That mare is a beginner's horse, okay? She's quiet as. But if you'd seen her come out here to do her demo this morning, she was distracted, she was wound up. Like, she's a beginner's horse in her situation. That mare's never had to put up with the pressure of doing events like this, where there's tractor pulls and sideshows and crowds and balloons and helicopters, and I think there's camels here somewhere. You know, there's all sorts of stuff going on, and you know, that's the thing. A horse that has been sold as a beginner's horse to someone who's riding around on the farm is very different to the kind of horse that I need to stand out here and do a demonstration. You know, we have 3 horses with us this weekend, and the reason why we have 3 horses is, one, I want to show you some of the things that, you know, can go wrong and where, you know, horses can have gaps in their training. But 2, like, I wouldn't do a ridden demo on this mare. Now, she's one of my competition mares, but when I come out to do a ridden demo, I know she's mentally not up to it, because I need a super reliable ridden horse. So every horse is different in every situation. If you saw this mare at home, she's the most beautiful, quiet, nothing phases her, never a problem. Okay, so that's your first thing. I want you all to remember that when you buy a horse, the horse that you go and see at home at somebody's place, you may think you have a different horse when you get it home. And I quite often get from people, oh, you know, I bought this horse and it was drugged, or I bought this horse and it was this, or I bought this horse and it was that. But the reality of the situation is, it's the same horse, and no, it wasn't drugged, and no, nothing bad went on. But once you take that horse out of its home environment, you have a different animal. Okay, you have a completely different horse, and you know, this mare would never do this at home. Okay, this, if you're wondering what she's doing, okay, this is her when she gets anxious, this mouth thing, okay, that's because she's uncomfortable. And at home, you would you would never think she knew how to do it, okay? But that's what she does. And that's what you've got to be aware of, okay? Buying a horse is not an instantaneous thing. You know, in 2023, we live in a world where everybody wants instant gratification. Everybody wants everything now, okay? Everybody thinks that when they buy a horse, they can take it home and they'll have this amazing horse straight away. Well, you know what? You're going to ride the horse differently to its last owner. You're probably going to feed it differently to its last owner. You're going to be a different personality to the last owner. And in my competition world, we say to people all the time, if you go and buy a going horse, and you might go and buy a winning horse, we say all the time, it's going to take you 12 months to turn that horse into, get it as going as good as it was when you bought it. And so I think that's something people need to be aware of, is you don't build an instant relationship. And it's interesting because we don't expect to build an instant relationship with humans. So, you know, if any of you have changed jobs recently and gone into a new workplace or a new school, you know, the dynamics change and the relationships change. And you fully expect that to happen. However, we buy a horse and we take it home and we expect it to fit like an old shoe. Okay, sure, sometimes they do, but 9 out of 10 times they don't, okay, and you have to give it a little bit of time. So, you know, I want you to be aware that horses will change. And the other thing I want you to be aware of is that, you know, when you look at a horse, okay, what you tend to see, now, you know, my partner will tell you that this is just another boring chestnut horse, okay? Now, he can ride a horse, chooses not to, but my partner, actually I had a foal born, and any of you who follow us on Facebook or Instagram, you would have seen in the last week I had a little foal born, and I was actually away doing a private clinic in Jindabyne, and I said to Warren, what is it? And the exact response I got was, it's another boring chestnut. Okay, I didn't get, it's a chestnut filly with 2 white socks, which is what it is. Okay, I got, it's another boring chestnut. Now, Woz is your absolute typical, you know, Australian farmer. Okay, there's not a big heap of emotion. There's, you know, everything is as it is. Okay, so he looked at this horse and went, it's a chestnut. But, you know, when I got home, what I saw was a cute little chestnut filly with the whole world in front of her. I could already see the first time I put my hand on her, the first time I hold her, the first time I teach her something, the first time I get to ride her. I could see that whole future in front of us because I'm the emotional one of the two of us. Okay, he's the practical, oh, it's a horse one. Okay, so he's kind of the person you want to take with you when you go to look to buy a horse. Because, and I must admit, if I went with any of you to look at horses, I'm a bit like that too. But when it's my horse, it's a different story. Because I'm just like all of you. I get caught up in the emotion of looking at those big eyes and that beautiful shiny coat and those big long ears, because she does have ears a bit like a mule. And I go, oh my God, look at this beautiful horse. Okay? Now, really? You know, and I look at this mare, and I see her, like I said, I bred her, so I see her from the day she was born. I see the good stuff and the bad stuff we've done, and I see where I want her to go. Okay, I have this dream in my mind of what this mare's going to achieve in her life. And I can see right down to the day she breeds me cute little plain chestnut foals. Okay? But that is what brings us unstuck when we go to buy a horse. Because we see all of that instead of looking at what's in front of us. And if you actually look at this mare, okay, I can tell you, like, you have a look at her. She's slightly higher in the rump end, okay? She runs downhill. Okay, that's a bit of a problem. She's a little bit offset in the front legs. She's got kind of a big head. Okay, there's actually a few physical things that are actually wrong with this mare. She's quite weak behind. She has a bit of trouble with the stifles. You know, but if you went to look at a horse, you don't see that. You see everything, you see the dream. You see the riding off into the sunset. So what you have to do when you go to buy a horse is you have to take the emotion out of it and you have to put a bit more practicality back into it. And you know, I don't want to take the fun out of it for you. I still want you to have that dream. But if you take things a bit more sensibly at the start, you've got a better chance of having a horse that you're going to spend your whole life with. And ultimately, that's what we all want. So, you know, when you go and look at a horse, take a wazzer. Okay, find that friend who will go and look at the horse and just go, this is what's wrong with it, this is what's wrong with it, this is what's right with it. And I had a case recently where I was asked by some people in Victoria to go and look at a horse here, locally. I didn't end up doing it, some stuff happened, but that's what they wanted. And what actually happened with that horse was when I didn't go and look at the horse and the horse was no longer a possibility for the daughter to buy, the mother rang me and she said, I've got a 14-year-old girl here in tears. Because in her mind, that 14-year-old girl already owned that horse. She was already going and jumping cross country. She was already winning dressage tests. She was already doing all of that. But that's what happened. She had so much emotion invested in it that it actually possibly worked out quite well that they never came and looked at the horse. Because if they'd come and looked at the horse, of course, what would they have done? They would have turned up. They would have turned up with the horse float, they would have looked at the horse, fallen in love with it and taken it home. And it may not have suited. We'll never know because the horse went somewhere else, but it may not have suited. So, you know, we want to be very careful when we're buying horses. We want to make sure that we take the emotion out if we can. We want to make sure that we're practical about it. Okay, we get good assistance, we get good help. And there are people you can pay to get that help in this country if you can't find somebody to come and do it for free. Because there's one slight problem with getting people to come and do it for free, is every so often the person you take will be the wrong person. And I had a client in Canberra, she's moved away now, I had a client in Canberra, and she was your ultimate horse collector. Does everyone here know somebody who's a horse collector? Just loves horses for the sake of horses? Yeah, okay. And so if you took her with you, this client of mine, she's the sort of person who would get you to buy the horse, even if it wasn't quite suitable, because she didn't have the money to buy it. She'd want you to buy it no matter what, because she thinks that she's living through you. So if you're going to take someone with you, make sure it's someone who's old and cynical like me, okay? You know, someone who's been around and seen it all before and goes, oh God, here we go again. Or the other thing is you take someone like me, who I'm the one, when you end up with the wrong horse, you come to one of my horsemanship clinics and then I'd have to fix it. I'd rather you come to one of my horsemanship clinics with a horse that you really love, that you want to go ahead with. Not because you can't get it to load on the float, or you can't get it to do anything else like that. Oh, sorry. This is what happens when you have your square hooked up to your phone and you walk off with it and your mother tries to do something while you're gone. So yeah, you know, I want you to have a horse that you can have fun with. I want you to have a horse that you can take to a clinic and enjoy, okay? I want you to have that dream horse, because as much as I am more than happy for you to come to one of my horsemanship clinics and I'm more than happy to take your money, after all, this is my job, I would rather you come to me and go, okay, Michelle, I've got this going really well, what do I do next? Okay, you know, I'm going really well, I want to go and start winning some more events, okay? I want to have, you know, this horse is going really well for me now, I want another horse that I'm going to be more challenged by. That's what I want to hear from you guys. And horse riding is very much a confidence thing, and I've got an article coming out in the next edition of Australian Performance Horse magazine, and it is about confidence, okay? And confidence is a bit like air. We don't think about how confident we are until we lose our confidence. So, you know, you guys think about breathing. You don't think about breathing, you don't think about the fact that there's air. But by gee, if I put a pillow over your face, I bet you start to think about it. And if any of you have had a wreck off a horse or had a bit of trouble, and this mare's a bit of a funny story about that, if you've had trouble with a horse, then you start to think about, well, how confident you are and where your confidence is. This little mare, yeah, she's the only horse that I can remember in, I don't know, probably since I was your age, who's bucked me off. And when she bucked me off, I was at an event. I was leading 2 horses off her at the time. I was warming up. And I was leading 2 horses off her and she bucked, and she didn't just buck. Like, she drove me so hard, I didn't think I was getting up. And then she got hurt and she bucked again, and then she didn't get me off that time. And then I went to step off her at home, and I snapped my ACL. Again, that was actually the day I snapped my ACL was my fault. So this mare and I, this mare, well, I take a breath every time I get on this mare, okay? And you know what, like, if it's all right for me, because horses are my job, okay? And let's be honest, it's kind of cool for all of you to know that I battle with it too, okay? That I have a horse that comes through, and because I breed my own competition horses, I don't get a choice. And we know sometimes they're not always the best horses, you know, but I have to do my best with them. And so I bred her, she's well bred, the stallion she's by is dead, her mother's probably had a last foal, nice bloodlines. We are going to make this happen because I'm going to put the time and the dedication into her. But if I wasn't me, if I was someone who worked full time and had to drive to Canberra from Murrumbateman every day to go to work, you wouldn't have had the time to put into her. And we've been through a lot of stuff, and this is the thing, and this is what happens. People get a horse like her, they have an accident, and then what do? Like, you have to sell it, because you can't ride it. Most of you can't afford to keep a paddock ornament, so then you have to sell it. What do? There's somebody here yesterday was talking about a horse that they've got that they're having a heap of trouble with, and they're thinking they're going to have to sell it, but they can't ride it. And unfortunately, those horses don't have much of a future. And you know, that what then happens to that horse? And we all know the realities of what can happen with horses and what goes on. You know, I'm not going to... No, that's not going to work. solution for somebody who just wants to train horses all day. I have so much trouble with technology. I'll give you the tip, everybody, especially young people. Whatever you do, don't think you're going to be a horse trainer. Don't think you're going to be a horse clinician, because you'll spend more time battling with technology than you ever will with horses. Horses are easy, okay? It's the technology we have to work with that nearly sends you mad. So, cool. So enough of all of that. We'll talk. What I want to show you is a couple of things I'd like you to look for on the ground when you go to look at a horse, okay? What I want to show you is a couple of things that I think are really important about horses. And you know what? It's okay if you go and look at a horse and it doesn't do these things. But it's like I was saying with her, you know, I kind of had two options. I either gave up and, you know, got rid of her or turned her into a broodmare, whatever. Or, you know, I worked with the problems I had. Of course, you always have a third option, and that is if you're having trouble with a horse, you can send it off to someone else. But if you've ever done that, you'll know how expensive it is, okay? And I'm not saying that horse trainers are not worth their money, but you just need to be prepared to spend the money. So, one of the things that I'm really big about, okay, with all my horses is personal space, okay? And the reason why I'm really big about personal space is it's a safety issue, okay? If this man now was trying to run over the top of me and rah, like, I could be in danger. And especially, you know, if you're an inexperienced horse person, if you're experienced and you've been around horses your whole life and you know to read their body language and stuff, this is all okay. But you can see how quickly this man moves out of my space, okay? You can see how quickly she is to respect my space. Now, she's kind of wanting to creep into me a bit because she's a bit uncertain about what's going on. She doesn't feel that safe. So, yeah, like that. But what I like about this mare is she respects it. Now, talking about that stock horse mare that I've got with me, the little bay mare that's over there, you know, she's been a kid's horse for most of her life. Like I said, she's been a beginner's horse and a kid's horse her whole life. So she's now, I think, 14 years old. So one of the things with her that I personally don't like is her inability to stay out of my space. Now, if I'm going to sell her to, and let's be honest, I'm going to sell her, that's what she says, she's to be sold. If I'm going to sell her to someone, before she goes, I need to make sure that she respects personal space, because I don't want her to sell her to somebody like a kid that's here or someone who's, you know, maybe having their second horse and them to get hurt, okay? So I need to make sure that that space is there. And a really cool way to test how well horses respect your space is to do this. Now, obviously you probably wouldn't have a stick in your hand, okay? But walk up to them. I know I've been backing you up, haven't I? Walk up to them, okay, give them a pat. Now, if you have dealing with a horse that's really scared about humans, okay, you might have noticed this mare backed up, but do you notice how she was pretty relaxed about it? She just thought I was going to back her up, so she backed up. If she was the sort of horse that came from an unsavoury situation, and let's be honest, as much as I hate to say it, there are places out there that are unsavoury for horses. If she had some bad experiences and I backed up, I walked up to her and she went backwards out of fear, that would be a different facial expression of what I'm getting, okay? That is, oh, you're going to make me back up and I don't want to do it. Okay, so I like to walk up to a horse and give them a pat on the head, okay? Now, I want to see if they'll let me walk up and let them pat them on the head. Yeah. Then what I'll do is I'll step away, but I will not pull on the rope. Now, remembering this mare's been doing groundwork, you know, basically since she was weaned with me, and she's done groundwork demos over her life. See how she stayed there? That's kind of cool, okay, because she's actually waiting for the next instruction. Now, if she had stepped forward, and I'll make her do it, if she had stepped forward and stepped straight into my space, okay, I'd just see if I could back her up, and I'd just walk and maybe wiggle the rope. Now, a lot of horses you're going to come across in your journey are not going to back up, but that's okay, as long as they don't keep coming over you, okay? Because straight away, especially if you've got a family and you've got kids who want to ride, or if you're really inexperienced, if you've got a horse that, when you ask it to back up, it just keeps coming at you and at you and at you and at you, just be a little concerned about where you're going to go with that. And if, you know, it's like I said before, you can be willing to put the time and effort into a horse to improve it, but if you're busy, if you've got a family, if you've got a full-time job, you've got all the commitments that we all know about, straight away you know you've got something to work on. Okay, straight away you know there's stuff to do. And this is my thing. You have three options, okay? You go and buy a really, really good horse. It's absolutely everything you want. You go and buy a horse that's kind of what you want, and you pay to go to clinics or pay for online training or whatever, and you learn how to make that horse exactly what you want. Or you pay the horses, buy the horses kind of okay, and then you go and you send it off to someone else for more work. Now, of course, the problem is when you send it off to someone else for more work, there's a big difference in how I handle a horse and how most of you are going to handle a horse, okay? Because remembering, I work with thousands of horses in a year. If you look at my clinic schedule and the horses that come through home, I'm working with thousands of horses in a year. So therefore, my ability to read their body language is going to be a lot quicker than yours. So you still, even if you send a horse off for training, you are still going to have to be willing to do more work yourself. So here's my first thing. Walk up, give them a pat, see if they're okay about it. Step away and see what they do. That is what I want them to do. Okay, now if I walk back up to, that wasn't. Okay? So did you see how with her, I just give her a wave and stick and she goes back. Okay? That's in your perfect world. So walk up. And this is the other thing I like about this mare. It's one of the reasons why I brought her out here. You watch her when I walk, when I turn away from all of you and turn to her, where does her focus go? Okay? She switched on to me straight away. Okay? If I turn her closer, she switched on to me. Okay? It's one of the reasons why, even I was telling you all before about the trouble I've had with her, it's one of the reasons why I've stuck with her. Okay? Because this mare is attuned. Okay? So now she's, oh yeah, righto. Okay? So we do the walk up. She's okay with it. She's like, oh, do you have to pat me? And then I walk away. I turn off, she relaxes. Okay? That's something, you may go and look at a horse and it may not do that, okay? But it's something that'll give you a fair idea of where that horse is emotionally and how much work you might have to do to get them there. If you are going to, I'll scratch. If you're then going to test something else, okay? I am super big on horses that flex. Okay, I want horses to be soft and light, and I want them to give to pressure. So, and if you want to learn these training techniques, you can go to my YouTube channel, and all these videos are on there for free. You can go and work out, you can show how to like learn to get a horse to flex. But I'd actually ask a horse to flex because I want to know that the horse knows to give to pressure. Okay? If I grab this mare's face and ask her to flex, and she sticks her head up in the air and like she's heading out to Bungendore, I'd be a little bit worried, okay? So again, if I ask her to flex, now she's going to go backwards, that's okay, because she's like, well, you just did this, why am I doing it again? Okay? So I would suggest you go and learn how to do this technique. I suggest you go and learn how to flex them. I would definitely make sure I had some good groundwork skills myself before I went away looking at horses, because I want to know that I can get this done. If I did this to this mare and she stuck her head off and took off, I probably wouldn't get on her, okay? And, you know, you might note, if anyone's been close to her, especially if you've been over in the yards, you might actually note this mare's got a whole heap of wire cuts on her back leg. She recently came home from an event and I unloaded her off the truck and turned loose. She very promptly went down the laneway below my arena and rolled into an electric fence. Now, if I'm going to give this mare credit for anything, I was still standing there. She was lucky. I was actually doing something and I heard this noise and I went, I know what that noise is and it's not good. And this mare, to her credit, ran straight back into the yards with 100 metres of plain trailing and wrapped around her back leg. So, one, she must be no good, because if she's any good, she would have cut a leg off. But two, you know what, sensible. Okay, you want to talk about groundwork and how sensible you could make a horse. She ran straight back to the yards where I was standing. Okay, and then I untangled her. And there was no way that wire was coming off, because it actually caught around a tail and then caught around a leg. So there's no way she was ever going to slip out of it. But what I want to say about that is, if you look at this mare, you'll see the wounds on her leg. Now, sometimes people get wound up about stuff like that. Okay, if you were coming to look at this mare, you can see it's only superficial, and that's why she's a good example to have out here today. I'm in the process of buying a gelding at the moment, and he has literally scun his whole shin. He's been locked up for 6 months. 4-year-old gelding. I'm not worried about it because it's been checked by a vet and there's no tendon damage or anything like that. You know what? He will never, ever, ever make a hack. I'll never be able to put him in the hack show ring. Do you know what? I don't care. I don't like show horses. Okay? I'm not into... And if you know me, and all respect to what everybody does, but if you know me, I'm not particularly interested in other people's opinions. So when I compete against the clock, because that clock doesn't lie. Okay, so, but here's the thing, a lot of people wouldn't buy that horse because of that injury. But I can overlook that injury. However, I could not overlook that if it had affected his soundness. And I've had him checked out and the horse is perfectly sound. So, you know, if you're going to go and buy a horse, make sure you know what you're buying it for. Okay? I'm not buying show horses. I can have scars and wounds. Okay? I'm not, but I can't have a horse that's got any sort of performance restricting injury, because at the end of the day, at the level I want to play at, that's not an option. However, if you just want to poke around the paddock and it's got a bit of a bad leg, could be okay. Okay, it could be okay. So there's one last little thing I want to show you all on this mare, if you can see it. If you've had a look at her, you'll see the white marks on her back. Okay, if you don't know what that is, that's been a badly fitting saddle. It was my saddle. Okay, she has a funny shoulder. She has one shoulder that's bigger than the other. If you ever see something like that on a horse, have a look at the horse's structure. Okay, it may not actually be the saddle's problem. In this case, it's not the saddle's problem. That right shoulder is actually much bigger on her. No particular reason, that's just how she is. And my saddle was sitting on her a bit tight on that side. Okay, so something to think about. You might see white hairs. Have a look at the actual structure of the horse. Okay, because that's not a saddle problem, that's a horse problem. I now shim the saddle out and everything's fine. So that's just a few hints and tips to help you, get you going. Please, I'll be at the stand if you've got any questions about buying horses or what you're doing or anything to do with horsemanship at all. Please come and see us. Thank you for hanging with me while the batteries died in the middle of everything. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the day of your day at the field days.